What's up everybody, Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends uh, All-Father Wave Iron Fist. Now this figure is pretty cool. Now my preference would obviously be that he'd be in his green costume, but I've been hearing that supposedly Hasbro's going to be releasing a green version of the Iron Fist, and I do not have the Toy Biz one. So right now we're going to take a look at the white one, and let's see how it stacks up. All right, so let's get right into it and talk articulation on this figure, because he has got some really good points of articulation on this figure. Let's take a look at the head first. It's on a ball peg and a disc hinge, and he can look up pretty well. Mine seems to be sticking a little bit, but he can look up pretty good. And then looking down, he can look down really well there. Nothing to complain about with that. And then side to side is just fine. No issues there. Not much of any tilt, but that's okay. Moving into the shoulders, there's a peg joint and then a hinge joint, which gives him really good upward motion. He can move his arms up really well. Full rotation capability there. And then there's this butterfly joint, which backwards wise works really well, but it does look a little bit funny. Gives you quite a bit of a gap there. Forward, not as much. It's really not all that useful there, but bicep joint works really well. Double jointed elbows, no complaints there, other than it would be nice if you had a little closer to a full bend, but not a big deal. Peg joint, and then a hinge in the wrist. All of those joints work really well. In the abs, he's got a upper torso crunch. He's able to do really good ab crunch. I mean, that's really far. You can see that. Back arch, also really good. There's nothing to complain about with that. And then standard waist articulation here. It works really well. I like that the little sash actually can be used to cover that up, so that's good. The hips, I'm not a huge fan of the hips. They're a Y joint, and they work, but they're just a little awkward. You have to twist the actual peg joint to be able to get more of an outward split. But when you do that, you can get him to do pretty much full set splits, which not a lot of the figures from Hasbro are able to do that. So in that respect, I like it. It's just kind of difficult to get those legs positioned just right so that they're not bow-legged and looking funny. But he is able to kick forward about this much, which is okay, not too bad. And then backwards kick, he can actually kick pretty well back, which is nothing too, or is not that common in quite a few of the Hasbro figures. Upper thigh swivel, which works well, except the hip joint does a lot of the times move with it. Moving down into the knees, double jointed knees. Those work pretty well. Not a complete bend, but enough. And then there is a hinge joint in the ankle. Full capability back, pretty good forward, and then the ankle rocker, which works really well. So overall, the articulation is really good. He's able to move in most positions that you might want. The only odd part is probably those T-jointed hips, which just takes a little bit of time getting used to. Overall, it's a really solid articulation on this figure. So the sculpt on this figure is really nice as well. It's nice and slender, which number one I like for a figure who, or a character who is a ninja essentially. or someone who is a master of martial arts, he should be a fairly slender figure. I really like the head sculpt. This head sculpt came out looking really, really nice. We'll see if we can get this to focus in a little bit. There we go. But the mask, the sculpt work on the mask is really nice. It's actually raised so you can see the difference from the face and the actual mask. You can see a little bit of the ear. And then the only concern that I do have is the little, I guess, ribbon or piece of fabric that comes out of the back. I'm always worried that that is going to snap off when I try to move the head. So luckily it has not broken off on me yet, but make sure that you're careful with that. Aside from that, the rest of it, I really like the sculpt work. It looks really nice. The butterfly joint, even though I did note you can see through into the chest cavity when you move it back, you can actually see all the way through, which is a little bit weird. But aside from that, it looks really nice. I do feel as though the hands are just a hair big, some of them, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But other than that, I really like the sculpt work on this. There's some nice detail work right in here. It's probably not anatomically correct, but it looks nice. The legs and the knees are a little boxy. The thighs are just a little squarish feeling, and then definitely the knees are not anatomically correct at all. So unless these are an actual knee pad of some sort in the costume, it's a little weird looking. So I'm not sure about that piece. But other than that, the figure looks really nice. It just stands up really well for what I would expect this figure or this character to look like. Moving into the paint is probably the weakest part of this figure. They did a good job, sort of, on the face paint. If you can see in here, the eyes, they did an okay job. The problem is, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get this thing to focus, there we go, is the eyes just kind of look, it's a silverish, and some of the black here is missing. It's not super clean, and the eyes, I don't know, they don't look super great. I like the skin tone. There's no paint for the lips to get those to look a little, to have any kind of differentiation in the lip color. So that's kind of a bummer. There's also no shading whatsoever on the helmet. So, you do have a little bit of the sculpt here that if there was just a little bit of black wash, you might actually be able to see some of that detail work that the sculpt is supposed to be showing. And throughout the figure, aside from in the chest, and this figure is not very consistent in this little bluish color that kind of sticks out, namely on the chest and a little bit on the arms, not really so much on the legs, although mine's got a little bit of it on the inside of the legs. There's a little bit of a bluish tint. Some of the figures, it's very, very pronounced. On mine, I didn't like that, so I dug through and I found one that didn't have it quite so strong. So you have your pick, I guess. If you like the really blue, sticking through, go ahead and find that one. These lines on the gold on the arms is okay. It's not at all straight. I think it's supposed to look like wrist wraps. I don't know that they really got that. And there's a big old smudge on this particular one. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, it's kind of cruddy looking. And then there's nothing on the feet aside from this goldish plastic. So paint-wise, there's a lot to be desired on this figure, but it still looks great. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the actual emblem on the chest. That they did really well. It's really clean. So I've got no complaints there. I really like that. All right. So overall, paint is kind of just meh, not that great, but not horrible. Could be worse. All right, so overall, this figure, it's a solid figure. I really like this guy. Iron Fist is a really fun figure to pose once you get the hang of those wide-jointed hips. You can really do a lot of cool things with this guy. And I might actually consider picking up another one. They're relatively cheap because everything in the Allfather wave pretty much is just kind of inundating all of the retail stores, warming the pegs. So I might pick up another one and try my hand at repainting him green if Hasbro does not come out with a green Iron Fist anytime soon. So this is a definite must-have for your collection. The paint is the main downside to it, but even that, it's not that big of a deal. It's a solid figure. So go out and get it. I hope you take a look at some of my other videos. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more.
Textures Brain Blast.